Hey friend, Leanne here from healthfulpursuit.com. You're listening to the Keto Diet Podcast. This is episode 340. I'm so stoked to have you here today. We were chatting about the thyroid with my friend, Dr. Amie. I'm going to include her links down below this video. She's brilliant. I can't wait to share her work with you and to just chat more about the thyroid. Our sponsors of today's show are LMNT and Paleo Valley. You can find their details down below. They make today's show possible because there's a lot of costs that you have to dish out to host a podcast. So I'm so incredibly thankful for them. Without further ado, let's cut over to today's interview. Hi, Amie. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you, Leanne, for having me on.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so glad we finally got to do this. Last time we tried to connect, the internet was down, schedules were a mess, but here you are.
Here we are.
Yay. I just introduced you formally, all fancy, but in your own words, who are you? What do you do? What do you love? Tell us.
Yeah. So Dr. Amie, the thyroid fixer. And, I'm just here to help people. I love talking. I love these kind of conversations. I love giving information. Love educating people. That is my passion, is just educate people so that they know what's going on with their body, that they don't have to suffer. They don't have to live however they're living with weight gain, fatigue, whatever the symptoms are that we'll dive into. But really, that's my passion.
And that's awesome. And how did you always enjoy educating people specifically about thyroid fixing, or where did that kind of come in and how did that come about?
Yeah. So that's, I think anyone in this space who specializes, we all have a pain to purpose story, right? So I was always into nutrition, and way back, we're going back 20, 25 years. I was into nutrition because I was competing. So I was doing NPC fitness figure competitions. So for those who don't know, you have to diet down. You have to push your body to the limits. And I was not born a skinny mini. We have diabetes in my family. We have obesity in my family. So I would always have to work my butt off to get into show shape, to step on stage in a bikini and be judged by a panel of judges. So you really had to work hard. Your diet was strict. You're going to the gym a couple times a day. And I had done this multiple times. I had a coach, so I didn't rely on myself guessing what I should do, what I shouldn't do. So he was looking at me, he's like, no, you're on track, you're fine. And even just based on all the other shows I've done in the past, I knew how my body was supposed to respond and what the process would be. Well, there was one show where the scale kept going up and up and up. And it was like 20 plus pounds before I just stopped weighing myself because I was so frustrated. It didn't make any sense. Biologically, it made zero sense. I was eating salmon and cod and chicken and broccoli and asparagus and going to the gym a couple of times a day. So knowing my body and knowing that this isn't right and something's up, I went to a doctor, and actually started with my sister, who's a DO. And she's like, no, you're fine. Everything's fine. Your labs are fine. Now, looking back, I have no idea what labs were taken back then, because just like many of our listeners, you're not supposed to know. You're supposed to be able to go to your doctor and say, hey, this is what's going on with me. And I was fatigued and I was losing my hair. And I would go and, trust that I was getting the right testing done, because when you go with a list of symptoms, you hope that your doctor is going to be like, oh, that's not right. Let's look into this a little bit more, right? So after 6 other misdiagnoses, being told to eat less and exercise more, which I just said, I was eating less and exercising more, and I probably couldn't do any more or I would be dead. And getting told that, well, you're normal, quote unquote, everything's fine. You're just getting older. I was like 23, maybe. And then one doctor actually showed me a BMI chart. I don't even remember. I remember leaving that office and crying in my car because I just wanted an answer. So by doctor number 7, I was actually diagnosed. So I got that hypothyroid diagnosis. I was like, woo, yeah. Now I'm getting a pill. I'm going to lose some weight. I'm going to feel better. 5 months later, nothing. Because I was put on Levo, T4. And 5 months later, no change, not 1 pound, not one single pound off the scale. So of course I do my research. Now I don't even remember. I think I had like a gateway computer back then. Like it wasn't easy to do research back then. But you know, you start researching what you can. And I went back to this doctor and I was like, you know, there's this thing that's called T3 and turns out it works really well with T4. And can we do that? She goes, no, I don't do that. I go, well, I'm going to find somebody who does. And back then it wasn't really called functional, although I call him a functional medicine practitioner, but he was integrative, holistic, whatever you want to term him, was my savior. I kept hearing his name. And by the third time, I'm like, you know, I got to go see this guy. And I went and he tested properly, treated properly, changed my life, also diagnosed the PCOS just by looking at me. He's like, oh yeah, you got PCOS too. I was like, we can test, but I'm going to tell you, you got some PCOS going on there. So, I mean, he changed my world. And from that point on, I knew the frustration that I just went through, not acceptable. And that changed my career trajectory too, because then I went down the functional medicine path and got certified and became a doctor of clinical nutrition. And then here I am. Now I'm in the thyroid space because it's just it's so prevalent and it is so misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, mistreated, undertreated. It's crazy.
Those are all the trigger words that one would use: mistreated, undiagnosed. And it's so, when you're sharing your story, the frustration and helplessness that you must have felt, I think that so many women listening can relate to this, of just amazing that you kept going to doctors, because a lot of people would have been like, I'm crazy. Like there's a gaslighting experience happening of like, maybe I'm insane. Maybe I am getting old. Maybe there's nothing wrong with me. Maybe I am normal. And
Yep.
I think so many of us just give up because there's no other answer. And good on you for persevering. And now you are helping others hopefully not have to see 7 doctors or
Right.
9 or 12 until they, that's a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot of frustration. And that's the thing. You're right, Leanne. I mean, how many people would stop at number 1, number 2, maybe even number 3 and go, you know what? I just saw 3 and they all said I was fine. It's got to be me. You're right. It's medical gaslighting. That's a perfect term for it.
And do you think, like, I'm starting to understand and kind of see this divide between clinical care, which is what doctors, allopathic doctors provide, and the subclinical world, which is what the work that we're doing. We look at patterns and we start to understand our clients on a very deep level, to the point where we don't want them to get clinical, but these people are going in to clinical care providers with a subclinical problem. And the care providers are like, you're not in a disease state, you're fine. And I don't blame them, because that's how they've been trained. But I think our world doesn't understand that many of these things are subclinical and they're going to the wrong people for the problems that they're having. Would you agree with that?
Exactly. And when we look at conventional medicine and you going to your PCP, your family doctor, your OBGYN, you have to remember that those people are under control of the insurance company. They have 5 to 7 minutes to spend with you. They do not have time to look at your labs and see if, like you said, is it subclinical? Is it normal, but it's in the bottom end of normal? Or what about if we piece all of these labs together? What picture does that paint for the person? Oh, and then actually ask the person how they feel and pair up their symptoms with the labs. No, they have time to scroll down your labs. They're looking for the H, the L, that little red highlight, and then maybe they'll stop. And even then, honestly, I've seen people get passed through the medical system even when their labs are screaming. And I go, were you not told XYZ? They go, no. I'm like, well, it's right here. Like this could have been addressed a year ago. It's right here. And I think it's just a matter of time. I mean, that's where functional medicine, integrative care comes in, is because we care and we spend time with you, and we're not under the clock of, okay, 5 minutes, you got to move on to the next room and the next patient.
Yeah, I know. I just took on a new client and I spent 3 hours reviewing her history, and like she had a very complicated case, and I'm like, I doubt that there has been anyone who has spent this much time on her file. Like they just don't have the time, and
Yeah.
they're not going to see the patterns that we would see spending that much time. So you mentioned T3, T4, a couple of things that people might not be aware of. Thyroid, let's just back it up a step and kind of talk about like what's the role of thyroid for our overall health. And you mentioned a couple of symptoms that you were describing, but how does somebody know that the thyroid could be an issue for them?
Yeah. So the thyroid is the master gland. It controls everything. So your metabolism, your energy, your sex hormones, your adrenal glands, your pancreas and insulin production. It controls everything. So what we see, even when the thyroid gets a little bit wonky, is a little bit subclinical, or Hashimoto's, the autoimmune form of hypothyroidism, begins. So what I'll get into an analogy with that in a second. But what we see is weight gain, inability to lose weight, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, hair loss, extreme fatigue, insomnia, anxiety, depression, frozen shoulder, excess pain, increased allergy reactions, hives, urticaria. I mean, the list goes, constipation. The list goes on and on and on, because if you think of hypo is slow. Hypo is low and slow. So everything in your body slows down. Your metabolism slows down. Your hair growth slows down. Your mood slows. Your digestion slows. Everything slows down to a halt. And that's why you feel just blah. And with Hashimoto's, like I said, that's the autoimmune form. If anyone's thinking, well, what does that mean? I like using the analogy of soldiers. So you have this little group of soldiers in your body that, they're just confused. They're working against you. They're going out and literally attacking your thyroid gland because they think it's an invader. They don't know any better. And those soldiers will go out on a regular basis and just beat up your thyroid. Now, if you think about it, if somebody beat you up every day, you probably wouldn't function your best. Like you wouldn't be the best worker. You wouldn't be the best mom. You wouldn't be the best spouse. You'd be tired. You'd be on the couch. You'd be like, well, people keep beating me up every day here. That is your thyroid gland. It gets beat up by those soldiers daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and then it just doesn't work anymore. And that's where we see the Hashimoto component of hypothyroidism. Now with Hashi, 95% of all hypothyroid cases is Hashimoto's. It's the autoimmune form. Now, what we see in that other like 5%, we can see inflammation, heavy metal toxicity, sometimes co-infections like Epstein-Barr, although EBV is tied to Hashi as well. So there, radiation, chemo, certain drugs that can shut down the thyroid. People who have done extreme dieting, like HCG diet, 500 calories a day, that can shut down the thyroid as well. So there are those cases of hypothyroidism where it has occurred without the autoimmune component, but most of the time it is autoimmune.
Isn't that amazing? Like just the thyroid is so important, and it's like you were saying, it's so underdiagnosed. Why do you think that is? If we have the highs and lows of what we should be looking at thyroid, for example, if you hear this episode and you go to your doctor and you're like, I think there's something wrong with my thyroid, chances are they might run your TSH and maybe your T4, maybe.
Right.
And yeah, so why aren't we catching this? Are we using the wrong levels? Are we looking for the wrong things? What's going on here?
That's the $1 million question. It just is. I wish I had the answer as to why conventional medicine doesn't go deeper. And I was actually speaking to a group of integrative medicine practitioners a few years ago, and I was talking to them about the different tests that we really need to run to get a full picture of the thyroid. And then beyond that, treating the thyroid and getting out of the synthroid box, as I call it. And I asked the question, why, if you guys are integrative and you're supposed to think outside the box, why is it, let's say with treatment, if someone is depressed, you'll give them an antidepressant. And then if that doesn't work, you'll give them another one. If that doesn't work, you'll give them another one. Then you'll tag on an anti-anxiety. You'll give them 2 or 3. But with thyroid, you give them one med. And then if they don't feel good, oh, well, too bad, so sad. Sorry. And the one doc raises his hand and goes, that's all we've learned. So if that's what they're teaching, it goes back to the med school. It goes back to what they're learning. And I don't know if I can't remember whether you interviewed Dr. Brownstein ever, but I heard him speak and he said he is the iodine genius. And when he tells his story, he refers to a professor of his in med school that said the day they graduated, he said, I want to say in 3 years, 50% of what you learned here will be obsolete. So you have to keep learning. You have to keep digging. And with the thyroid gland being the master, we should start there with everything. Diabetes, start with thyroid. Oh, high cholesterol, thyroid. High blood pressure, thyroid. Fix that. And you would be amazed at how many disease states can be treated or eradicated and not band-aided with antidepressants, statins, blood pressure medications, sleeping pills, on and on and on.
Isn't that just incredible? Like, and I was chatting with a friend the other day about liver health, gut health, and has a bunch of hypothyroid symptoms. And I just asked her, like, let's take a look at your labs and look at the function of your liver. Turns out she's not creating a lot of bile. There's clearly some liver stuff needing to be supported there. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is we need the liver and the gut to be in pretty good shape in order to convert the T4 to T3. And that's not even talked about. But, I think the biggest thing is that, and what you're saying is it's not just one thing. And when these doctors don't, they're not educated on what to do in these circumstances, we're going to the wrong person for the wrong thing. It's so frustrating. And so you chatted a little bit, you mentioned blood sugar. Would that be involved with insulin? Like, what's going on with blood sugar, insulin, thyroid? Can you tell us what's happening there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I see in my hypothyroid patients, I see insulin resistance and blood sugar dysregulation in about, I would easily go 98, 99%. It's very, very rare that I don't see some form of blood sugar dysregulation. Sometimes I'll see reactive hypoglycemia where people will have glucose at like 50. But most of the time the insulin is way, way, way high, 15, 18, 22, 24. A1C is way above a 5.1, which is where I like it. I see A1Cs at 5.6 to 6.5. And then glucose, which we look at, but we know that can lie. So I really like relying on insulin and A1C for the insulin resistant picture. But oh my gosh, we see it all the time. And I always say that there's a triangle. There's the thyroid, insulin, cholesterol triangle, because a lot of my patients will come too with high cholesterol and they go, my doctor wants to put me on a statin. What about, oh, my cholesterol's flagged. And I go, well, okay, we're treating your thyroid and you have insulin resistance over here. And we know that red meat and eggs don't raise your cholesterol. So if we actually bring down your insulin and treat this, and we're treating your thyroid at the same time, guess what? Your cholesterol is going to look really pretty in a short amount of time. So it's just so connected. It's so beautifully and fascinatingly connected. I love it. But yeah, insulin is a big one. So I like to do the both and. You treat the thyroid and you treat the insulin with diet and supplements. So you're doing both at the same time, and then everything acts and reacts together.
Something that you just mentioned too made me think of people that just like when you were talking about, you're like, yay, I'm hypothyroid. I'm going to go on a medication and it's going to be great. And when you're talking about supplementing and supporting certain areas, I think a lot of people expect to take these supplements, to do this diet for a week. And then they get impatient because their levels haven't changed. Things aren't happening. What's a realistic expectation as we work through insulin, thyroid, seeing that cascade through our cholesterol and other markers, liver health, all these things?
I'm so happy you brought that up because I'm so happy because I know my patients are going to listen to this and they need to hear it multiple times because I say this multiple times. Progress is not linear when you have a thyroid problem. So you're starting off, especially if you've been undiagnosed for years, you've been mistreated for years. No one has looked at all the underlying causes that are driving your thyroid to go wacky. No one's treating anything at all. So you are literally starting at the bottom of a hole. So when we start to fix these things, okay, you start to climb out of that hole, but it takes a while before you even see light. And then you start climbing a little bit more, and then you get to the top of the hole. And then you get to come out and enjoy the life and the sunlight and all that good stuff. So realistic expectations, usually 1 to 2 months to really start seeing those changes occur. So I'll get texts from patients going, they'll be on month 1 or 2. They'll go, I only lost 2 pounds this month. I go, only? What were you doing last month? Oh, I was gaining. I'm like, yeah. So the fact that you lost 2 pounds and you're hypo and we just started with you, you should be doing a happy dance in your living room right now, not texting me that you only lost 2 pounds with a sad face. So yeah, it does. You have to be patient. You have to be patient when you're treating thyroid and insulin and making all these changes because it takes a while to get that fire going again, to get your body revved up again.
Yeah, I love that whole analogy. That is fantastic. Like you can't expect. And I think that's too, celebrating, really understanding and remembering where you were a couple of weeks ago, how things were going before you started working on it. I think it's really easy to start comparing yourself to either your practitioner or your friends who have been doing it longer, and all those things. We can start to get kind of negative around the progress and give up. Doesn't it hurt when you're working with a client and you know that they just need XYZ and they're like, this isn't working for me, I'm out. And it's like, oh, like you're so close. You just hold on a little bit longer.
I know. We've all been there as practitioners. We've all been there, but people have to want to change too. I have a mindset component to my program, and I recently incorporated that in the last 6 to 9 months. And it's helped so much because a lot of times people have that underlying subconscious belief that they're never going to get better, especially if you have been misdiagnosed multiple times. If that's been driven into your subconscious that you're normal, you're fine, you're just getting older, you're normal, you're fine, you're just getting older, it's in your head, then you start going like, well, maybe I won't ever get better. Maybe I have to just learn to deal with it. Maybe I am just getting older. And it's almost a self-sabotage that occurs. I don't know if you see that with your clients, but a lot of them will self-sabotage.
Yeah. It's so sad. And I've been there too. I am one of the hands up, like
all
both
of us
hands.
have. We all have. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you mentioned a little bit about weight loss, and just that scale going up and now it's going down, and your own experience with weight gain, as your thyroid was imbalanced. If a woman is, let's say, because this is the Keto Diet Podcast, eating a keto diet, they're doing everything right and not losing weight, would your first thought be, thyroid perhaps? Or kind of where are you going? And do you feel like the keto diet is a good eating style for that kind of circumstance?
I do. I love the keto diet. I speak out so often about naysayers of keto and hypo-hashi. I think it's absolutely the best because if you look at it, if you look at that triangle that we talked about and how insulin resistance plays a role, I mean, it's 99% of the time it's there. If you have hypothyroidism, there's a 99% chance you have insulin resistance. So what do we do for insulin resistance? Lower carbohydrates. It just makes sense. And then all the other benefits of keto, lowered inflammation. I mean, just on and on and on. So yes, to answer your question, if someone is doing a keto diet the right way and not dirty keto, then if they're not losing and their body's not responding, we have to look at thyroid. We have to look at hormones, especially if insulin's coming in fine. Yeah, I like an insulin below a 6. If your insulin's below a 6, your A1C is 5, 5.1, maybe even 5.2, then yeah, we have to look at thyroid and hormones.
And where does medication fall in line with all of this? You know, you mentioned going on one. A lot of people have tried. I just actually interviewed a lady right before our interview, and she said that she had tried every single thyroid medication, like every single one she'd tried, it didn't work. Where does medication fall in line with this? Does it? Any words of advice?
Very personalized, very individualized. So if someone is, let's say, in the latter stages of Hashimoto's, where the thyroid gland has literally been destroyed down to almost nothing, or someone had a total thyroidectomy, partial thyroidectomy, we have to replace the hormones that are no longer being made. That requires medication. And then we have to find the right one for you. And we have to make sure that you're converting T4 to T3. T4 is inactive, T3 is active. T4 has to convert to T3. So we have to do all this testing and finagling and looking to make sure that we have that right medication and the right dose that's for you. Now, if we catch it early, or if you, let's say, have hypothyroidism because of extreme dieting in the past, then we can do things we can look for that underlying cause. So we can do what functional medicine is here to do, find the root cause. Do you have Epstein-Barr virus? And that's driving antibodies to go up and driving the destruction of your thyroid. Well, then we can treat the underlying infection. We can treat that co-infection. Do you have something like Lyme, mycotoxin exposure, mold? Do you have high insulin? Are you walking around with an insulin level of a 24 and that's driving up the reverse T3, basically putting your body in a self-protective mode and shutting down your thyroid? Because when reverse T3 is high, your body's saying, we need you to survive. We don't need you to grow your hair. We certainly don't need you to lose weight. We don't need you to even feel good. You just have to live. So what is driving that high reverse T3? Are you estrogen dominant? High estrogen will drive up reverse T3 as well. And will low testosterone in women. Ladies, you need testosterone. So that will also drive Hashimoto's and reduce thyroid function. We have to look for the root cause and treat that. And then if medication is needed, then we use it. We use it. If it's needed for you, we use it. My goal is to get you feeling like yourself again, whichever path that has to go.
Oh, I love that. Like that should be on a t-shirt, because it is so incredibly unique. And I think, really the goal of a good practitioner is really getting to that level with their clients and understanding what they need and understanding that no body is the same, and kind of getting giddy over like, what's your body going to show us and how are we going to adjust for this? And it's going to be completely different than any other client that I've ever seen.
Right.
I think too often we hear podcasts like this and somebody will say, I went on NP thyroid and it changed my life. And they're like, I need this, I need the NP thyroid. And it's just, that's not how it works, is what I'm hearing you say.
It's not. I mean, I'll have patients that I'll have one that does great on NP, but not on Armor. I'll have another one that does horrible on Armor and NP, but they do great on the synthetics like Thyroid and Cytomel. I mean, everyone is so unique and so individualized. And for the woman that you just spoke about that has tried every thyroid and it didn't work, I have patients like that. Then we go to the gut. Then we go, what the hell's going on in your gut that is not allowing you to process this medication? Because it shouldn't be, so then it kind of becomes like, okay, gut health, like you said, liver health. Are you estrogen dominant? What is something, where's your reverse T3 level when you're taking XYZ? And there's so many things that we can do with thyroid medication. So if she is truly low in thyroid hormone, then we can adjust that. Like we can even use a combination of NDT and the synthetics. So we can change ratios and I mean, there's so much we can do.
So fun. I just love that. And I love watching you talk about it. You really light up about it. And I think that that's really great. And that's a sign of somebody who's truly passionate and wanting to help others. And for people that are so discouraged, like we were talking about earlier, to be able to work with somebody and have a team of people or one person that wants to be there and is listening to them and encouraging them to come to them with issues and symptoms and talk through these things is just so comforting for those that have an experience like you had, getting to your diagnosis and really understanding what was going on with your body.
Thank you. No, I do. I love it. I love doing what I do. And I hate seeing people accept the struggle. I try to give my message, and anytime I talk, I give the message that your body was not created to feel like garbage. So nowhere in human creation is there a point that says, well, you're 40, so you got to throw in the towel and just accept feeling like poo for the rest of your life. We're sorry. I don't see that anywhere in the medical textbooks. I've never come across that. So if you do feel like that, if you're gaining weight, if you fit, you know your body, right? We're women. We know our bodies inside and out. We know if we put on 5 pounds, 2 pounds. So you know your body, you know when you're feeling off, you know when your energy's not right, you know when you're more moody, you know when just things just, they're just off. And you have to listen to that and not accept it, not let anyone tell you that that's normal, because that is not how the beautiful human body was created.
So true. Amen. Just mic drop. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Boom.
How else can we optimize our thyroid? And just for those listening who are interested in overall thyroid health, the women that listen to this podcast, they're already eating a low carb diet, if not fully keto, intermittent fasting, and doing all of those things. I would hope that they're not doing a dirty keto, because I've talked about that so many times, and how important vegetables are, and carb timing, and all of those things. What are the things that you look for in a good eating style, lifestyle, stress management protocol, to just support the thyroid overall?
Yeah. So everything that you said with diet, everything that you teach with diet, 100%, 1,000,000%. And then beyond that, and I think you talk about this too, I hate cardio. I mean, just let's not be cardio queens. Go lift some weights, do some yoga, do some stress relief. You would be amazed at how nurturing that is for your body. And then we can bring in the adrenals here when we're talking about the thyroid. If you're stressing yourself out, if you are not taking time to deep breathe, sounds so simple, right? Take a couple deep breaths a day. Put a sticky note in your car. Every time you get in your car, take 2 deep belly breaths. And doing those little things and not stressing yourself out, killing yourself at the gym, doing CrossFit 7 days a week, doing cardio at all. Actually, I don't like it at all. But lowering that stress response and nurturing your adrenals will do amazing things for your thyroid function. Because if you're pumping out cortisol, cortisol needs T3, T3 needs cortisol. So if you're pumping out too much cortisol, guess what? T3 is going down. If your adrenals actually just crap the bed and say, no, I'm not going to work anymore, and you're low cortisol, well, now you're in trouble. Now you have no adrenal function and you have no T3 production. So now that's kind of a double whammy. So doing things to de-stress, to not crush yourself. No, doing 2 times at a gym is stupid. That was the bad idea on my part 25 years ago, but that's what I was taught in terms of competing. Don't do that. There's no need for you to go to the gym twice a day. There's no need for you to be on a treadmill for 45 minutes, much less 20. Go do some yoga, do some breathing, stretch, weight train, ladies. Build that lean muscle mass, that lean, sexy, beautiful, metabolically active muscle mass. Do that, and that will take you very, very far. You do that with the keto diet and you're getting adequate protein. Oh my goodness. Your body will love you. Your thyroid will love you. So all of that is reducing inflammation, and that's what it's about. Inflammation is the driver of all disease. And then we can tie inflammation back to high insulin, because high insulin will age you faster than anything. But yeah, just keep the insulin low, keep your inflammation low, and you're golden. It sounds so simple, but it's true.
It does sound so simple. I think you listen to all these lists and tasks and things that you have to adjust. And I think a lot of people, I know for myself, before I got started in this work, I would listen to a bunch of different podcasts and listen to a bunch of different YouTube videos and get so many resources that there's actually too much information at this point that I think people just get bogged down by the wrong things that they need. And it's really quite simple. And so I really liked how you simplified it right there. And lifting heavy things does not need to be complicated. I, look around my house for random things. I'm like, I'm going to move that couch and I'm going to do this and I'm going to carry all, like, just on a daily basis. Where can you lift heavy things? And even just starting there, I know has been really helpful for me in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Go for a walk without your phone. Actually look at what's around you. Take a couple deep breaths, enjoy the dog that you're walking, whatever it is. But, disconnect and de-stress a little bit. It's so hard to do. I get it. And then there's sleep. There's the whole, like, get the blue light blocking glasses, turn your phone off, turn your Wi-Fi off at night, cold, dark room. All of those, again, they're so simple, but they're so hard for us to do as human beings who overwork ourselves and feel like we have to be answering text messages and looking at Facebook at 10 p.m. So yeah, those little behavioral changes, they can make such a big impact. Such a big impact.
So true. Dr. Amie, where can people find more information from you? Your Instagram, where they can connect with you? Tell us all the things.
Yeah. So on my website, dramiehornaman.com, if you are interested in finding out more about my services, you can click on book a call on there. Instagram, I'm Dr. Amie Hornaman, and you can find me on all podcast platforms as the Thyroid Fixer podcast. So, which we're going to have you on very soon.
I cannot wait for that. And I will include all the links that you just shared and resources in today's show notes. So if people were like, whoa, I don't even know where to go, don't worry, I got you covered. So just look down below if you're watching this on YouTube, or look for the show notes. You can either get them on the app or go to ketodietpodcast.com, look for episode 340, and it will be there. Dr. Amie, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Woo, this is wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, I really hope you enjoyed today's chat with Dr. Amie. Again, you can find her details down below this video, and you can connect with me next week for another episode of the Keto Diet Podcast. Bye.